All right, the Colorado Avalanche hit the road for a 4-game roadie. Will things be different now post-trade deadline? Let's discuss. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming up.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. I am Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated, like I said. All right, follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, LockedOnAvalanche and gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Make sure you subscribe to our Subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. When you do, send us your questions, your comments, and your concerns there as well, which we share on this very podcast. All right, so if you're watching over on YouTube, as you can see on our rundown, interesting stuff. And I know he's no longer with the team, but we'll talk about it because it's interesting. Ryan Johansen, who was traded to the Philly Flyers, obviously. Weird stuff going on over there. So we'll talk about that. But let's get into this road trip for the Avalanche, something that they've struggled with mightily this year. It's no secret. It's night and day for when this team plays at home in Ball Arena and when they're out on the road. I think they have a 500 record out on the road. It's pretty abysmal. But we're in a new era of Avalanche hockey. So what are you thinking? Just it's a 4-game road trip. We'll get into each individual game, not full details, but just kind of talk about what we're expecting from this 4-game road trip for the next week.
It's I like how you mentioned that it's a new era of Avalanche hockey on the road because they set up a gauntlet for this team. Like they set up every trap possible. It's a back-to-back 2-game break. You get 2 games off, and then you play Edmonton, 2 more days off, St. Louis. Like you're getting your playing up, playing down, playing around because you get Vancouver as well in that 4-game road trip. It's tricky, but this is what you want to see. You want to see the new guys be tested against quality teams. I mean, you're playing Calgary to get everything started. Like that's a great gritty team to see how this team is constructed. And then you have Vancouver, then you have Edmonton and St. Louis try and maintain that momentum and finish that off with a W.
Yeah, those are like you just listed off the 4 games. So and it's not ideal going on a back-to-back. Obviously, on the road, back-to-back suck. Back-to-backs on the road, they suck even more. So and then you're up in Canada, no less. So and you have 2 days off, and then Edmonton, which they haven't played them, right? They have not played Edmonton this year. I don't think so. Because they're the last game of the season I know is against Edmonton.
You're correct, but this will be the first, and then they play again on April 5th and April 18th.
Crazy how it's mid-November. Where am I? Where's my head? I'm on Thanksgiving time. It's mid-March, and this is our first game against Edmonton. Crazy how they do. Yeah,
it'll be finishing out the 3rd game of the Calgary season series. And beginning the Edmonton season series.
Wonderful job, NHL. How you make this thing work. I'm sure there's some rhyme or reason for it. I just don't know what it is. So you're looking at the Calgary game and how we're sitting here saying like, oh, this is a new era of Avalanche road hockey. It's the same thing for Calgary. They were obviously active at the trade deadline and the weeks that preceded it. For different reasons. They got rid of a lot of players, a lot of contracts. So they're in a weird spot of transition, but while still wanting to be somewhat engaged in a season and not fully throw in the towel. But they've been struggling lately.
Yeah.
And they're where's their last few? Like they're giving up a lot of goals. They've lost 2 in a row. So let's see, their last 4 games, they've lost 3. They lost to Seattle, where they gave up 4 goals. They beat Tampa Bay, go figure, where they scored 6. They lost to the Panthers, where they gave up 5, and then they just lost to the Hurricanes, where they gave up 7. So yeah, this is a team that's struggling. I mean, with the exception of that Lightning game, and before that Kraken game, they went on a nice run. They had a 5-game winning streak prior to that Kraken game. But I think where this team is right now is I don't want to. I mean, I think they're a little bit vulnerable. This is post trade deadline where you gave up some important players. And for the Avalanche, I think this is like exactly what you want to start your road trip out against a team that seems to be a little bit in flux right now.
And the weird thing is, we're talking about the new era and new look of the Avalanche. The Flames, your hottest member of the Flames right now is Igor Sharangovich, a former Devil. This isn't like what you originally planned on this Calgary Flames team looking like. So, and to be honest with you, we were talking about how the Avs are going to look on this road trip. This is the perfect game for the Avalanche to get their special teams going, because the Calgary Flames are 30th in power play. If you want to get that penalty kill going with Nichushkin back, and you want to capitalize on the power play where the Avalanche sit at 7th, and you want to win the faceoff battle where Calgary ranks 15th, this is the good way to start all of this, because you can really knock Calgary down and out, and this could be something you come back to in the offseason and pluck all the pieces that aren't working for the Calgary Flames. But this is one of those that you cannot start this road trip by letting a team in flux like this with some really bad stats defeat you on the beginning of a back-to-back.
Yeah, nothing jumps out at you that Calgary is doing well. As far as team stats go, you do have Nazem Kadri, who is leading. He's leading them in points with 55 in 64 games played. So there's nobody on this team that's a point per game player. So they have some guys that and Huberdeau is just, man, has he fallen off a cliff since going to Calgary. He's got 40 points in 63 games, and plus minus, and take plus minus for however you want to take it. He's a minus 19 on the season. A guy of his caliber should not be a minus 19. Where Nazem Kadri, just going back to him for a second, while he's leading their leading scorer, he's a +2. So he's out on the ice for about equal amounts of his team scoring and the other team scoring. It's just weird stats all around. And while Blake Coleman, who's second on the team in scoring, 48 points in 64 games played, he's a +23. Where does that make it make sense, Kyle? I cannot. Those two things it's so bizarre to me when you look at this team and kind of like look at their individual stats and team stats.
And it's funny that you bring up Huberdeau and kind of falling off. Does anybody remember Jacob Markstrom or Vladar, their backup goalie? It's been quiet out of both of them, especially around the trade deadline. Like, with this team just kind of floating here, would you not want to get rid of one of those goalies and try and get some pieces in? Nothing happened there. And Markstrom doesn't scare you like he did last year in the beginning of this year. And Vladar definitely doesn't. So this is primed for the Avalanche to set up and just tee off on the goalie position. Another 50-shot game would not be bad. This would be one of those that would benefit you.
I think because Markstrom is a good goalie.
He is.
And his number, like his save percentage is .910. And his goals against average are .268. Not terrible at all. So how much of this is just his defense is just failing him? So and so much is riding on him. I don't have Money Puck in front of me, but I'm interested to see what their the shots allowed are, because it's probably near the top if I had to guess.
And one of those that does home ice advantage, does it help Calgary any? Is this one of those things that can propel Calgary to finish it out and kind of salvage this season any? I just don't see it. But it's one of those that we talked about how close that Minnesota Wild game was, and it kind of skews your perception on like those injuries, and you just kind of you keep everything in check as you go.
Mhm.
You could do the same thing with another close game against Calgary going into a Vancouver game where Vancouver's been really good all year long. You really want to play your best effort, not just this game, not just the road trip, the rest of the season, because you really
Yeah.
need to put out your A+ effort all the way, and this is where it starts.
Yeah, I think for the Avs, I think you reset your road record to 0-0-0, and how you finish off the season. You look at that heading into the playoffs, and if post trade deadline you had a good road record, that's what you're paying attention to going into the playoffs, not what came before it, because it's you have a 4 brand new guys on this team, and Valanciunas just came back, so that's what you want to get out to a great start to the road trip. And I think Calgary's a pretty good place to do it because of all the reasons that we said. So, what new guys could be looking forward to this road trip out of those 4 new guys that we got? Are there ones that we're looking at specifically that after this 4-game road trip is over, we say like, okay, they're getting it, and they were. I think all of them are going to be good acquisitions. But is there any that kind of rise to the top just after this 4-game road trip? We'll talk about that. We'll do that coming up next. All right, let's hear from Sleeper. Once again, Kyle scouring the internets looking for a app or website that is better for daily fantasy sports than Sleeper. Any luck yet, sir?
No, not a single one.
No. And I don't think you're going to, because we want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. I combined hockey and Sleeper and made it one word. The official daily fantasy app of Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And this is where I come to you, sir, to get your daily fantasy hockey pick for the Avalanche in their next game. Obviously, that is against Calgary. Who are you liking in this one?
Casey Middlestat.
Yes, I thought you were going to go newbie route. All right, love it. So all you have to do is pick whether studs like Casey Middlestat will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That code is LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. I think this road trip is coming at a good time for the new guys too, because it's good. You have some good camaraderie. You get to know them a little bit more. It's also good that the Avs have had a few days off since that first game, like road trip or the trade deadline ended on a day that you played. And I know there's a lot of people, and I agree with them, who feel like there should be no games on trade deadline day. I'm in agreement. And I think there was 3 games on trade deadline day on Friday, maybe 4, but the Avs were one of them. It's tough, but either way, like, so those guys get in there and they get thrown right out on the ice. We saw kind of like how the game in Minnesota, the growing pains of having 1 brand new player, let alone 4. Okay. So now you played that game against Minnesota. Now you have a few days off. So they've got some good practice days in. Now you go out on the road, and that's where you build up the camaraderie and the bromances and things like that. And now you can get away from like the home crowd, which I'm sure they are excited to play in front of the home crowd. The road is where you kind of solidify your team. So away from the wins and losses and stuff like that, which we just talked about in the first segment, who are you liking? Who you think kind of comes out of this road trip as a player that the Avalanche say like, yeah, he's taken to the system. He's doing good.
And and you mentioned opening after the trade deadline, against the Minnesota Wild. That's Brandon Duhaime in his old barn against his old team. So like it's not really, and you heard his comments afterward. Like, I just want to get out of here. It's not.
He didn't want to play that game.
No, yeah, it's
That's
not
tough.
fun.
That's tough.
So you
Yeah.
look at the rest of this road trip, and no more former teams, no more of those storylines. So everybody can really settle in. You get on the buses, you can get on the planes, you get on the trains, you get in the automobiles, and you can sit there and play cards with your new teammates, learn each other, get on the practice ice, learn how everybody plays. And in those adverse environments when nobody's your friend, you're the enemy wherever you go. You get to stick together and overcome as a unit. And I'm expecting, I mentioned him in the sleeper ad, but this might be a coming out for Middlestead to get comfortable, to find his role, find his place, and like his heartbeat on this Avalanche team. I think all the other acquisitions were pretty much, they know their role, but there's going to be a lot asked of Middlestead. And I feel like he's going to find it on this road trip.
I think that's the easy answer, or maybe the one that everybody wants the answer to be is Middlestat, and that's understandable. He's got a big role, so you want to see that the role is not too big for him. I don't think that it is. I think, just in seeing interviews with him, he seems very calm, cool, and collected. He seems like he's up for this challenge. Doesn't seem like the lights are too big. It doesn't seem like the pressure is too big. So now let's just go out and do what you need to do. So I think that answer, I think Middlestat is the simple answer. And like I said, I think that's the answer that if that happens, if he has a solid 4-game road trip, he's immediately going to be a favorite in the after 4 games. 4 games. Say he goes on a 4-game point streak for these 4 road games. Avalanche fans will be, snatching up his jerseys left and right, because that's crazy the 2C has been, and he would just need 4 games to appease Avalanche fans.
And is he not wearing 37?
He is.
So bring some clout back to that number, but just duct tape everywhere. But no, and I know you say that's the easy answer, but in the next segment we're going to be talking about the easy answer.
I know.
Like we thought this at one point. This is easy answer number 2. So this is what's to be expected. But Middlestead, the way he plays, like he's Buffalo's leading scorer currently. It's you expect a little bit more out of him. We were doing a lot of, when we got Ryjo, we did an episode talking about how exciting this was and talking about what version of Ryan Johansen are we going to get. You have a better idea of what you're going to get when it comes to Middlestead and his play and his contributions and how he's going to help this roster today, because he is currently Boston's leading scorer today. So Buffalo. Buffalo.
Yeah. It would be nice.
That will contribute. Now you're not having to kind of connect the dots where we had to for Ryjo, where he could be this or he could be this. It's more plug and play, and we expect that. And if this is one of those that works, we're going to be fine. Where we thought we were at the beginning of the year, we finally have that little bit of peace now.
Let me ask you this question. In the court of public opinion, so the Avalanche fan base, how much of a leash are they giving Middlestat? And how much of that is because of Ryan Johansen? Like you just said, like Ryan Johansen, like we thought was going to be the answer to that 2C, and it's not. And will Casey Middlestat be, if he does the opposite of what I'm saying and goes on a 4-game point, if he does nothing, like worst case scenario, doesn't give you a single point in these next 4 games, are Avalanche fans going to jump to that quickly? Because it can work both ways. If he has a great road trip, you'll see how quickly this fan base gets behind him. If he doesn't, after 4 games, 5 total, will they turn on him and be like, here we go again with the 2C? Or will they acknowledge that it takes more than 4 or 5 games. And although we don't want it to, I get that part of it. But will they give him a little bit more of a leash? Or again, is it just because the Johansson stuff, it's going right back to the doom and gloom well?
Oh, Chris, oh, you say you're playing devil's advocate? I
Mm-hmm.
will play Lucky Lucifer here. I'll take one more step back.
Okay.
This McFarland, this everything rides on this move right here. You remember the big 4 moves of Colton, Wood, Raijo, and Tatar? Half those moves are gone, and we haven't even made it through a season. You can't have this fail.
You can't. My only issue when it comes to pinning it on a general manager is, how did you feel at the time? You know what I mean? Like, you can always look at the end result and be like, "Oh, that
Mm.
didn't work out. GM made a terrible move." At the time of making those moves, maybe not so much the Tatar one. That was late in the offseason, and that was just like an added roster player, and that was just playing with house money.
Duhaime.
What do you think? What do you mean? Like,
Just his time, the time of acquisition, and
okay.
honestly, his talent, importance, and contribution, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Like, so that could be the one where you're like, right now you're saying like, I'm not a big fan of
Yep.
it. That's fine. But I hate these like Monday morning quarterback comments of, not that there were Broncos episode, like the whole Russell Wilson thing. At the time of acquisition, everybody loved it.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely loved it. Now it's so easy to rip it. But that's not how you felt when you got the guy in. I'm more concerned about that. If you didn't like a move bringing a guy in at that time, then you have all of the anger rights to you, anointed to you. Don't come in here months later with like Ryan Johansen, unless you said in the beginning, like Vargar did. Vargar from Subtext, he was not sold on Ryan Johansen from the jump. He's got bragging rights right now.
Yeah.
And he can talk. Everybody else, I can't, because I was liking it. So that's where I stand when it comes to the GM's role in things.
Yeah.
And for the most part, when moves are made for the Avs, I think people typically are okay with them. And for these moves right here, if you're the Duhaime one, I'm kind of with you on that. Like, I don't hate it, but I'm not wasn't a huge fan of it. But now with the Logan O'Connor stuff, now okay, I kind of get it too. So we'll see how it all plays out. We got some subtext comments on who they think any of these newbies could break out, and then we'll continue with Ryan Johansen talk. There's more Ryan Johansen talk on this episode than there was all year long, and he's not even on the team anymore. So we'll discuss all that. We'll do that next. All right, let's hear from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, which we call
the Nathan McKinnon trilogy,
eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's get some subtext thoughts here on the newbies and who they think is going to have a pretty good road trip. This is from Joe. Hopefully Middlestat shows everyone what a 2C is supposed to look like once he's a bit more comfortable after another game. I'm also a fan of Treenan's play, and I'd love to see the bottom 6 go off. Yeah, that's another part of it. And I think we have to kind of keep into context here. Who kind of breaks out is not just points related, right? I think that's what everybody's going to look at. But a lot of, Training, Duhaime, they were brought in to be bottom 6 guys. You're not going to get hat tricks out of them, but they're equally as important. So do they not give up silly goals? Do they not lose assignments? You're looking for that out of those guys. And Trainins, I think I think he could be a good acquisition on multiple fronts, including the penalty kill.
And it's a good sign when Trennan cares about what his jersey is. He's taken ownership and pride of his time here.
Yeah.
If he didn't care, if he was just like, I'll take whatever number, I don't care. Like that, it speaks a lot of your character and attitude. So if he cares about jersey number, that shows a little something.
Madam Battleaxe, who is she will, by the way, in yesterday's episode, we asked her to inform us on hip surgeries because she is in the medical field. She is going to give us thoughts on that. So we will still get that from her. But for this question, she says, honestly, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say Duhaime. I just get the sense that he's going to light it up for at least 3 out of the 4 games. She's going gut feeling there. Never going to disagree with someone's gut feeling. So Duhaime it is for her.
Yeah, he's got that Darren Helm in the playoffs feeling.
That's where I'm looking forward to him.
Yeah,
is playoffs. I don't know why. I just feel like he's a guy that kind of gets up for that.
Yep.
Vargar, I agree with Vargar here. Sean Walker. He goes, I think if Sean Walker assimilates into the Avs system the quickest, Walker will have a goal and 2 assists in 4 games. He's given us stats here. He will surprise, leading the breakout and solid play in his own zone. Trainin and Duhaime will be solid on the PK by the end of the trip. He's giving us everybody. Vargar's just going through everybody. Middlestat will score his against that whining wannabe tough goalie who plays for the Missouri team, whose name also escapes me.
God bless him.
Duhaime will bump said goalie in the net, and he will throw a tantrum. All of that is going to happen. Book it, especially that last thing. But no, I'm with him on the Walker thing. I think if the Middlestat is one that everybody, that was the big name, and that was the big deal, rightfully so. Sean Walker was a sneaky good get by the Avs, and I'm with him. I'm totally with Vargar here. I think Walker is the guy coming out of this, removed from Middlestat. People are like, okay, not that we forget you, Bo Byram, but we're okay. We're okay, and Sean Walker is that guy. I really like him.
No, I want Sean Walker to make me forget about Bo Byram. Do it.
And then last but not least, Easton. He goes, we suck on the road. But I think he maybe misunderstood the assignment. But we'll give him, because he's our resident GM, we'll let him slide with this. He goes, I think Lecky and Val, they'll tear it up on the forechecking. So.
And it's time for Lecky to have him a little bit of a game, and I think he's got a little bit of a nagging injury. I've been seeing that through the playoffs, but I mean through the practices here lately. So that's something to keep an eye on. Absolutely,
I think he's doing okay. Like since he's the break, I think he's been doing just fine. So there you go. There's our Subtext people. If you want to be included in that, links in the show notes below. Sign up and follow along. All right. Last thing we want to get to here, odd stuff coming out of Philly with Ryan Johansen. Obviously, the Avalanche traded him along with a first-round pick to get Sean Walker. And then the Flyers immediately put him on waivers. He cleared, and now they believe they did send him down, right? Wow. So it's coming out, and this was on with Elliot Friedman and the 32 Thoughts podcast, that the Flyers waived Johansson partly because of his history with John Tortorella, who John Tortorella is not having a good week. No. If anybody saw that video of him refusing to leave the bench after he was thrown out of the game, he refused to leave for a few minutes, and he has since been suspended 2 games and fined $30,000. I think it was
50.
20. It was $50,000. Side note, explain that to me on how you can break somebody's bones out on the ice intentionally, and you get fined $5,324.63. But dropping some F-bombs at a ref gets you suspended for 2 games and $50,000. How are those two things equal?
Don't mess with the refs. They
I know
told you at the beginning of the year.
Man, don't mess with refs, but mess with somebody's life.
Yeah.
When you swing a stick at their head.
The players have a union. Don't mess with our referees.
Crazy. Anyway, so that whole situation with Ryan Johansen past with Tortorella came up, and they were saying something about a potential injury to Ryan Johansen, and you cannot waive a guy who is injured. So I don't remember any injury from Ryan Johansen, and anything can pop up at any time. But the third part of this is Ryan Johansen shares a agent with now former prospect for the Flyers and Cutter Gauthier. So that's another reason this whole thing, and I guess Ryan Johansen is not happy how that went because they share agents for some reason. It's already off to a horrible start for Ryan Johansen in Philly.
Chris, my friend, I know I'm not the most intelligent person in the world. I was homeschooled in Alabama, but
don't sell yourself short.
Why would Philly go after Ryan Johansen and make this move if you have all of this list of problems? Why did you give us Shaw Walker for a player to go to Lehigh Valley? What are you doing here?
It's the first round pick. That is totally 100% what this is. They valued that first round pick and were willing to take in Ryan Johansen. All of those problems aside, is a first round pick, we hope a late one at that, worth it? Is it really worth it? If you're just gonna, take this guy and immediately waive him, and you have issues between him and his coach and the franchise itself with how they handled one of their top prospects. Craziness. This is great. Like I'm fascinated by this, and this is definitely something I'm going to be watching. But they can waive him after the season is over. But he's throwing out there that he was and Elliot Friedman talked about. I don't remember who the guy was, but a team wanted to waive a guy, and they're like, "You can't. He's hurt. He got hurt, at home practicing in his backyard." And then you could just go get a doctor to say, yeah, he is. And you can't waive him because of that. I don't know if Philly thinks that Ryan Johansen is doing that, but it seems like it's on the table. This is becoming a soap opera in Philadelphia right now, and I am tuning in for it. I love it.
I will get the chance to go see him in April play for Lehigh Valley because they're going to be coming close to me. So I'll say hi to Rijo and knock it off. But it's one of those things that you also beg to ask the question, why not incorporate this in a 3-team deal? Why are you taking this on? If you want that first round pick, good. I bet you could send it back to Nashville. Nashville would make another little move with you.
I don't know if they would have done that. That would have been
send Rijo to Dallas. Dallas would have made a little move.
I don't know if Dallas would have either. That would have hurt them. You want to improve at the deadline. And there's no way Dallas is making a deal with the Avalanche right now.
Wait a minute. You said he's hurt? Send him to Vegas. LTIR. The end.
Don't get me going on Vegas. We're not going to. We've had a good show so far. We're not going to end it with Vegas. Come on now. Fascinating stuff. So keep an eye on it. And it's not our problem anymore, but I keep an eye on the stuff. I love it. All right. That is going to wrap it up for today, everyone. So thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow to discuss, hopefully, an Avalanche win over the Calgary Flames. And get a sound check in. We haven't, just the way the schedule has worked out, we haven't been able to do a sound check in a little while. So we'll have one of those tomorrow as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.